You are good to go.
Perfect. All right. I will call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. We'll do roll call. I'll start because I was looking at Katie and she was on. Kelly Tarbell.
Lisa Sanders.
David Martin.
Caitlin Benson.
Amber Wilson.
Blaine Millington.
Nobody online or are other people I can't see?
We've got Mary online and we've got Jeff Hance who's joined.
Thank you. All right. I would look for a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of a possible approval of a special ed candidate for the Mount Holly position.
I move to approve the agenda with one addition under new business, which is consideration of an applicant for the Mount Holly special ed position.
I will second that motion.
Thank you. All right. Any other discussion? Nothing online, right? All those in favor of approving the agenda as amended?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Perfect. Approval of meeting minutes from October 2nd.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second. Second from Dave, thank you. Any discussion about the minutes? Not online either? No. All those in favor of approving the minutes from October 2nd, 2025?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? And I will abstain because I wasn't here. Thank you. And then public comment?
No, not mine.
No.
I apologize. I was letting Adrian know.
That's okay. I figured you were doing something important. No public online either, right?
Nope.
Okay. Then district reports start with superintendents.
Just a minute.
Sure.
Pull this up. This will be easier for you. It's a lot of numbers, so it's easier to kind of look at it.
This time as well, or you?
Yeah, but budget will be when we get to you, so we can make you send change.
No.
Meeting or did you start?
We started.
We get started.
Yeah.
Didn't know if you wanted to change.
Yeah, no, I figured that, yeah, while do we have to officially transition it? Yeah. Yeah, no, you're good. Relax, it's all good.
So, well, once you get settled, I can.
That's okay, yeah, and I just can't get online, so that's, you're presenting it, it's good.
Oh, yeah.
Super.
Sure.
I'm gonna let you in.
Adrian, just so you know, the only thing major we did was do an addition under new business for possible hire of a special ed person in Mount Holly.
Okay.
Other than that, we are at superintendent's report. Yep, perfect.
So, tonight, we're in November, right? We're starting to get into the throes of budget season. And so usually what we do is a discussion about kind of the landscape and the constraints that we're kind of facing as we look ahead to the next fiscal year. That's what this presentation is about. And Cheryl's been working her tail off with everything else that's been going on. And when we get to the financial reporting, we'll talk about kind of an overview draft budget for the TRSU board at that point in time. But this will dovetail in with some of the rationales for why we're recommending what we do in the draft budget at this point in time. One of the reasons to take a look at this is to really be able to predict fiscally what our health is going to be, to try to anticipate things that we might need to mitigate for as we go into the coming budget year. A couple of things to be aware of, especially with redistricting and all the talk of taxes and things that are going on right now. A couple of the things that are going to have a major impact on people's taxes as well as budgets across the state relates back to the education fund. Remembering how the education fund works, that everybody across the state pays for everybody's education across the state. So what we do here has a very small impact in terms of what our taxpayers experience, because what we do here is spread out across all the taxpayers in the state of Vermont. The education fund right now, it's $2.7 billion a year to fund education in the state of Vermont. 1.1 billion of that goes towards staff salaries. That is predicted to rise by 15% over the next 3 years. So that'll be a major impact on people's taxes. Each 1% increase in salaries requires another $12 million added to the education fund to cover it. It is understandable that staff salaries are going to be rising as they are because inflation has been high for the last couple of years.
To be very clear that that is statewide, not in our control at the moment.
Yeah, that is statewide. So sorry about that. So this
Just
is
want to be really critical.
this is the big picture.
Right.
But again, 15% on average across the state of Vermont. Health benefits has been a huge contributor to increases as well in terms of the education fund. And again, this is statewide. 5 years ago, the cost to provide health insurance for a family plan for a staff member was about $17,000. 5 years later, it's $40,000. This means that on average, the cost of healthcare and providing it has been going up by about 13% per year annually. Main drivers right now are the increasing cost of prescription drugs. That's the heavy one. A lot of it had to do, especially recently, with the weight loss drugs that the insurance companies were covering. Another piece of this is the inflation, right? It impacts everything, including the cost of healthcare. And so they've seen a significant increase in their labor costs and equipment costs. And then there is still an ongoing kind of demand for deferred medical procedures that were put off during the COVID years. So a lot of that's happening.
Can I just add that part of the reason it's only 7.3% this year, because our insurance plan is no longer going to cover
Recording in progress.
the GLP-1 medicine.
Yes.
More. And the other one was something about UVM accepting what Blue Cross.
Accepts. Yeah, I think we touched on it at this board. It might have been David that brought it up, could have been Lisa, about the idea that there's usually a negotiation going on between the state and the union about healthcare and costs and what the cost sharing has been. That has been deferred until like 2027-ish. And a lot of what they're working on right now is trying to find ways, instead of negotiating with each other about it, what can we do to try to find ways to cut costs? And so to keep the cost of healthcare insurance from increasing. And one of the things was the GLPs, and the other is trying to work in more incentives for people's own taking care of their own health, getting out, getting exercise, eating better, that sort of thing. So it looks like it has had a little bit of an impact. So that 13% average over the previous years, there is 7.3% is the predicted this year for health insurance. Annual inflation, like we said, is a big driving factor. In New England, and you could go back like 20, 25 years, the cost of living increases have been about 1.6%, almost to the 100th. But since 2023, it's exceeded 3%, sometimes much more than 3%, and it has been ticking up again in recent months. So again, it's understandable that especially the associations and the labor unions, as we're in negotiations, are looking for higher amounts probably than they normally would. That's kind of fair compensation for their loss of purchasing power due to inflation. Federal legislative actions, and we're actually going to directly try to address these in the budget draft that you're going to see. There has been a lot of cut of in terms of grants that schools traditionally get. The one that we can pretty much expect not to be there next year is Title II. Title I provides direct services to students. So that one's seen some moderate reductions, but they were quite clear about going after Title II. We probably wouldn't have it this year if we didn't already have money in our accounts when they made the decisions to stop it. Title II deals with professional development for staff and coaching for staff. So it's all the things that increase the quality of the education that students receive in the schools. And so you'll see in the budget presentation that we're trying to mitigate that by adding some funds in to cover the losses. One of the big questions that are out there right now is the Individuals with Disabilities in Education Act grants. Typically that provides support for IEP services, it's staff, it's preschool services, early intervention. One of the things that was touched on in the previous meeting was the idea that it also funds a lot of the research for education. And so while the government has not said that it's going to be cutting the grants, they seem to be going in a roundabout way to make sure that the grants cannot be administered because they are cutting all the staff in the department that oversees this. If the staff's not there, the grants won't go out. So that one's kind of a question mark on it right now. I think when we talked about it earlier, that could have a $450,000, $490,000 impact on this district if that money is lost. A couple of other things to be aware of. The federal government is pushing for a stronger voucher system. In a voucher system, what it means is families receive a lump sum of money that they can then use for tuition to send their students wherever they would like. They've also been talking about education savings plans and expanding those. That's pretty much a voucher that allows you to use the money for more things, homeschooling, tutoring, providing services that are similar to special education to your child. And so those two things are out there. And why that's important and where it may impact Vermont, and a lot of folks are kind of familiar with this, with the discussions around independent schools in the state, is this idea is that in our case, you've got this education fund, which is a lump sum of money. Anytime these vouchers come into play and they get strengthened, they're like additional siphons that are coming into that funding and taking it away. So that's what's left over for public education to be used. And so if this is pushed as hard as they're pushing it, we may have some dramatic impacts in terms of losses that the taxpayers would have to make up for to keep the public education system up and running. Other things that impact the budget and impact taxpayers, there are a lot of unfunded mandates in the state of Vermont. The most recently in recent years, it's the PCBs, which affects the Green Mountain District. There's the lead testing, there's the radon testing. All of those things are recent legislative actions that were put in place to have schools go and identify if these things exist and then remediate them if they do. The PCB action alone is in probably the billions, if not tens of billions of dollars that schools would have to remediate. The state to date put in $35 million for remediation the first year that this was in effect and put in $9 million in the second year. Now, we don't know if they're putting anything in it for the next year. But the expectation of the cleanup through the legislation still remains, and that may be borne on the backs of local taxpayers. Universal free meals is one that came in that has impacted the education fund recently. Good idea, but has a tremendous impact on the cost of education. One of the things that was kind of snuck in a little bit because it wasn't really talked a lot about at the time was the child care payroll tax. Vermont's trying to do a good thing. It's trying to increase early education opportunities in preschools for kids and families across the state. And so what they did is they put a 44-cent tax for every $100 of each district's payroll as a means of collecting funds to try to fund that. Teacher retirement benefits have never been fully funded. They've been taking an increasingly large bite out of the education fund itself. So those are things that will impact taxpayers. In the state of Vermont, especially, there are numerous mental health issues that we deal with every day, and it's getting worse over time. We have very talented staff. They're very good at managing the students that have the mental health challenges, at keeping them in school and trying to guide them into learning, but they just do not have the specialization for the challenges that we are seeing. And then the academic mandates that exist out there that have come down the pike that have been very costly, both in terms of manpower and in terms of actual dollars. You know, you've got the standards-based report cards, the personalized pathways, et cetera, all of which are based on good ideas. But as far as the testing scores in the state of Vermont indicate, they've had absolutely no impact, if anything. We are also entering the age of Act 73, this big redistricting act, which is for the most part a much bigger version of Act 46 because of the way that it is consolidating districts and what its goals are. Act 46 did not achieve what it was expected to. that collaborative that we can use to hopefully address those issues and make things better for kids so that they're independent, kind of going that line. So the BOCES model, there's actually a piece of it that's attached to Act 73, which is interesting. It has an out, if we're not happy, we can, it'll take a year, but, we can pull out of it if it's not serving our needs or if it's more expensive than we think. But one of the redistricting models right now out there that they're fiddling around with as we're getting close to that December deadline for them to start making some decisions is based on the BOCES model. They're saying that, hey, we have districts around the state that have naturally come together to form a collaborative. Why not just make them the districts? Yeah, well, the BOCES model is either 5 or 7 collaboratives that they're allowing. They're going to have to expand that. But that's one of the discussions. So you got the CTES model where they're clustering things around the career and technical centers. You got the BOCES model, and then the last one is the regional high school model, where you give up your high schools, we'll build some brand new, 21 nice brand new regional high schools for the kids to go to. And the districts will be centered around them. So those seem to be the 3 that they're talking about most now. But the BOCES one is interesting because even though the law was passed prior to Act 73, it seems to foreshadow looking back. So it looks like there may have been a plan in place, but I don't know. It's kind of interesting to see from this perspective. The kind of information there. So, good question.
No, the questions will be in the details when we get to shift.
So do you want to just continue on through the reports?
Facilities report. Todd is off deer hunting in Pennsylvania, so please have a good time. I think that on the 2 sides, we had a big report on the Green Mountain side from the Department of Environmental Conservation that came in and basically told us, yeah, you got all these problems in terms of PCBs. We promised you the world, and this is what we're going to give you. So that was interesting to hear. And so, the hope is that what they're planning on actually doing for remediation, which is literally just pulling out the caulking around the windows where they know there's high concentrations of PCBs, is going to solve the problem. It won't. I was an environmentalist. It won't. But that's their hope.
Can you clarify that? They're gonna pull caulking out from windows.
So you've got the outside windows, and there's caulking that between the window and usually the building itself.
Right.
That's where the PCBs are located. So their intent is to go in, clean out all that caulking, leave everything else pretty much the same, and then hope that that's going to bring the PCB levels down in the building.
And what are we replacing it with?
Probably just new
More
non-PCB.
PCBs?
No, the PCBs don't exist anymore. There's caulking out there that is, safe.
That in 10 years we'll find out has something else in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's on this side, on Ludlow Mount Holly side here. A lot of the discussion, and you guys know as well as I do, has been about the roof over at Mount Holly School, and trying to determine, the best path forward. Is it better to just repair the critical areas of it? Is it better just to replace the whole thing? If we decide to do one or the other, do we have money in reserves just to do it? Should we go out and, have this as part of the request from the community as we put these funds? Those are the 2 biggies right now. Curriculum. She put together a pretty good report. Some of the work that is going on right now is we had a team that went up to Killington in the last week here, because one of the results of Act 73 and one of the things that the state is requiring is a standardization of curriculum and graduation requirements and graduation proficiencies across the state so that everybody is doing the same thing. So they had an opportunity to work on the graduation requirement strand. And there's a draft copy of what the state is proposing within the documents that you have. And it's actually, at least the Model A is a pretty good plan compared to what I've seen in most states. It's still not at the level that you would see in a Massachusetts or a Connecticut, but it's close. The question then becomes, is given the more rigorous standards and requirements that are being put on students, is what resources are there to make sure that the support structures are in place so the kids can actually achieve things. And so that's the discussions that are happening here now. The state is supposed to be putting out a statewide curriculum. And so one of the discussions that Louisa and I have had is, okay, should we be continuing with our own curriculum mapping work, or should we be waiting for the state to provide those to us? Do we have faith and belief that the state will actually follow through and produce these things? And so she's reaching out to the Agency of Education to try to get answers to that question, because it'll guide how we move forward in our own curriculum work. So that's the bigger work that's happening right now in terms of curriculum. The little financial report.
I'll start with the, let's see, October report. I've got David's format out here. I don't know if everybody has looked at it. We show that we have a deficit at this point, but it's just ongoing because where we are at the beginning of the year and the flow of the assessments that come in, we try not to take too much from the districts that we don't have to, but we also need to pay the bills, so we gotta do what we gotta do. Everybody is where I would expect them to be at this point. The office is a little high, I'm not sure, we're back up the line on that. But we had an additional SLP that we hired for this school year that we did not budget for.
What's that?
Speech language pathologist assistant. Additional tuition for special ed student and transportation Cavendish, additional BIs for Ludlow and Mount Holly. Mental health counselors we had to move around this year, which ends up being an impact. They do a time study on those staff, and then they go through and break out regular and special ed and do an adjustment at the end of the year based on the students that they see. The Horizons program at Green Mountains needs some specialized support that wasn't budgeted for. And the Vermont Learning Collaborative that will soon be the BOCES, we hadn't budgeted for in 26. That was a program that kind of started, I think, coming out of COVID, and it sort of happened and it didn't really happen, and we paid some money and then no one billed us, and then somebody billed us, and then they billed us for the following year. So it is just, and that was turning into something else.
Yeah, and they have a weird, at least as it starting off, the funding program for it is, it starts off at first where people will be paying a yearly fee into it, and then it kind of switches over fee for service in the end. The nice part about the BOCES is that the state did put aside money in terms of grants for it to cover those fees from the districts in the initial years. And so, but yeah, it is exactly what, and hopefully it ends up being a little bit better than what I was describing.
And the central office is on target. I was thinking we were 3 months in, but we're 4 months in. So they are looking good. Questions about the financials?
Okay, so the central office was at 38%.
Right.
That's you're on a calendar year. Is that more or
Well,
less?
over on fiscal year.
I mean, fiscal year, and that's like.
So we're 4 months in, and I was thinking in my head, we were 3, we should be more, that's a different percentage, but we're good.
Right, and so we expect it to be more like 33?
4 months in, 4 out of 12, this quarter of the budget.
30 should be 35% spent.
Yeah.
About 8.33% a month.
Okay, and where's the special ed? It's at 25%. It is basically a school year.
Well, yes, that's more so, but also we're just getting started with the students that are bigger bills with the tuition bills.
Okay,
For whatever reason, they're very.
so we shouldn't panic.
Shouldn't panic.
Okay,
And I'm actually a little concerned about special ed as I'm doing the budget today. The extraordinary reimbursement that we got, that I'm budgeting for is twice as high as what that I budgeted last year. So that leads me to believe that our expenses are considerably higher going into this year than what we had anticipated. So I'm working a little bit better.
Yeah. Special education as a whole is an area that the state collectively is going to have to take a look at. And fundamentally, I think, like I said, the real needs of the students right now are on the emotional disturbance side. They're on those mental health challenges. And until there is a structure that can actually help resolve the mental health challenges, I mean, literally cure them, fix them, make them better, we're going to continue to see special education across the state for a while. Like I said, we manage the situation. We put a paraprofessional with a student who may not be able to control behaviors, but the problem is the reason the parent is with them is because the parent is doing the regulation for the child, and the child can't learn how to do it for themselves. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but that's a whole other piece, and that's a state thing.
But I don't hear anything from the state suggesting that they're recognizing this as a problem that they need to take some responsibility for.
This has been a problem since before I came back to Vermont. So it is. But
Okay,
Can I just ask real quick? I ask this question every year. I don't fully understand why it is the school, the district, the SU, around, the entire state. Why is it our responsibility to be providing all of these services? I mean, are parents mental, like in their insurance? I mean, can anything else be utilized to pay for some of this?
if the student is on Medicaid,
Hmm.
then we can do a reimbursement. If we get the parent's permission, then that's a reimbursement. It comes in and
With their permission.
with their permission, we bill. And so we have IEP Medicaid money that we use for different things. It doesn't necessarily go back against special ed because we have to reinvest it in our district. We have a whole bunch of things we looked at today that we could use the money for. Currently, we're doing like the Medicaid clerk and Dennis Lascallo, math interventionist. And
So we're billing for the services, but we can't use the money to pay for the services.
correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
and the way the bigger question there, and it's not going to be a satisfying answer I can give you, is under federal law, under IDEA, we are required to provide services that allow these children what they need to be able to access the curriculum. So, but they do not state a funding mechanism, right? I would call it's technically an unfunded mandate. This is what you have to do.
Mhm.
How you fund it, go figure it out. I mean, that's kind of the.
So we do get those students that are over 67,000 change.
Yeah, certainly.
We get extraordinary reimbursement, which is a significantly higher level of reimbursement for those students. It's still that offset. It is.
But it still comes from local, not local, but it still comes from state tax.
That's what I guess I'm trying to figure out. So like it's unfunded mandate,
From the federal.
figured out how to pay for it. Like, is there not a way that we could, so if it's, people on any type of state assistance, we need their permission. So what if they say no, and then if people have private insurance, why can't we, we're supplying something for a child. Why can't there be an insurance billing?
Yeah. Question?
Good question, but the IEP Medicaid that we do bill back, it's based on the level of service, so it's not a fee for service, it's a category 1, 2, 3, 4, but it's based on the amount of services that you get, the more services you get, the higher number you get with higher reimbursement that you get. So it's not like, hey, you have 30 minutes of PT and this is what you get. It's a lump set all together. So it's a little bit different. But it's not by any means a dollar for dollar reimbursement.
And it only covers medical-based services. And, a lot of the services are. If you need an occupational therapist, that's a potentially medical-based service that you could get.
Yeah,
No, I see that.
It all seems very this doesn't seem, clearly it's probably very intentionally not straightforward. I just, this is like getting medical care and not paying for it. There's, but then the burden falls on the taxpayers And, you know, we just keep seeing these, I mean, there hasn't been a year I haven't seen this go up substantially. Like it just, every year it gets worse. We've got to find another billing source. But I just,
So it's, sorry. I was just gonna say, it's a system issue that the system is within the community, not just the school. But the school is, I mean, I don't know how to say it eloquently, but schools pick it up. We see it. We see the problems. We see the kids. We are nice people. And so we're going to do what we have to do to take care of kids. And because we've done that for so long, government, communities, whatever it is, are like, man, schools do it. School's responsibility. Let them keep doing it. They're going to keep doing it. We're not going to pay for that stuff. And they've stopped. And yet more and more is falling on schools, and that more and more are being paid for. And schools' budgets are really the only budgets that you vote on, that every other budget just happens.
Yeah.
And people don't realize how much we're paying for that's not direct education.
Yeah.
We are
But that's
not just paying for education.
Oh, no, I
Yeah, no, I know you know that.
It's
I'm,
so frustrating.
Yeah.
Is there like no avenue for us to explore? I guess that's the crux of my question. Is there an
Yeah.
avenue that we can explore that we can start,
So
you know?
Mary has been doing that. I mean, it comes down to kind of cost effectiveness. If it costs me $340,000 to send a kid out for services and then another $120,000 for busing, is it cheaper to have one or two staff members here who can actually work with a kid and do a better job?
Yeah,
And so she's been building programs. There's 2 or 3 that went into place at the high school this past year
I'll keep thinking about
to be able to bring. It's still expensive, but it's cost cutting, but it's still not getting to the root of the problem. And that's the growing mental health issues. It's a community issue. There's a lot of issues out there where we do our best to mitigate them when the kids are here. But if the kids are back in the community, exposed to the mechanisms that are causing the problems more time than they're with us, then it's just adding fuel to the fire that we're trying to put out.
I have the same perception on PCDs. You know, we're mitigating in the schools. Are we mitigating it in people's houses that that are covered in tiles and all of these? I mean, like, I just feel like we're just throwing money out the window for all of these things. But I still go back to my question. Is there no mechanism where the schools can build private insurance for services?
Not that I'm aware of.
You know what? Let's ask Heather. That's your specialty. Hold on, you want to follow up on that? You want me to? Like that, that doesn't bother me.
Yeah, go ahead. The other thing, the block grant, it was a 5-year implementation, and what they were doing is taking the districts that spent a lot for people, and your districts that spent little, and bringing them up.
Mhm.
This is the final year, so we dropped from like $24.91 to $23.50 per student, and so that was $107,000 decrease in that, and that's been happening over the last year. So at some point, we will go to we may or may not, but related,
Why would you want to do your job the same way?
Yeah.
keep it interesting.
Well, the state, it's kind of funny, the state has been trying to address the issue, so kudos. But their way of doing it is butt backwards, for a nicer way of saying it. So we are required, if the student needs the services, to be able to access the curriculum to provide it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. What the state is doing is it's changing these funding mechanisms from a reimbursement model to a block grant model, which we're currently into a weighted model, technically as a means to restrict the amount of money we have available for services to try to control costs that way. But that's in direct conflict with what the law says, which is if the kid needs it, you provide it. And so you could say, well, maybe the intent is just to make us think much more deeply about what we do, but we already do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, they're not addressing the structure at the level that needs to be addressed, even though they are trying. But it's gonna cause a collapse eventually if they don't get it right.
All right, thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Nope, good segue. Want to do the slides or?
Woo, yeah. And then lots of caffeine this afternoon. So the draft budget for November, and again, this is still, it's in the ballpark, it's forecasting. It won't even be till, what's the December 1st letter, December 1st, until we actually get the information from the state that we'll use to kind of get things a little bit closer to reality here. But the things that this budget that we're showing right now are designed to kind of address is it's the idea that, yeah, taxes are high. We want to do our part. So we're going to go to level service. The districts did a wonderful job, especially last year, in kind of restoring things that have been lost in previous years to make sure that we've got what we need to do our job with kids. And we're pretty satisfied with that we've got kind of what we need for the here and now. So level service, there you're going to see that we did some analysis of the comparables across the state and took a look at where our non-bargaining staff salaries are. Non-bargaining people are people that aren't in unions, right? So admin assistants, we had our BIs, payroll specialists, the principals would fall into that category. So everyone who is not in a union, and tried to para-educate a little BIs. And so a lot of this was just to try to bring them closer to actually being comparable to the demographics across the state. We put in some money to try to cover the Title II losses so that we can continue with our professional development work and the curriculum work and everything else that makes schools good at what they do. Obviously, we have our own kind of mandatory obligations already under current contracts. We've got step raises and things like that that are guaranteed each year that we have to make sure happen. While we haven't actually added anything to this draft, we do have this as a placeholder that we've got to really be thinking about those possible changes to IDEA, which is a huge expense because it goes back to supporting the special education services. TRSU summary overall, so that your eyes can pop out of your head. And we'll go into detail on each of the areas. You've got the central office itself, you've got transportation, and then you've got special education. The current year that we are in, 9.9 million. Given the priorities that were placed there, the proposed is 12 million, so it's a $2 million change. Central office, based upon this draft, would be a $300,000 increase. Transportation, $16,000, and special education, 1.7 million. We'll kind of dig a little bit into the meaning of these numbers. Central office, we've got the good old annual increase in terms of the cost of our healthcare plans. So for central office, that impacts about $53,000.
It's also personnel changes in plans.
Yeah. Oh, that very, very good point. So it's not just that the cost. It's not just the cost that's changing about healthcare, that's 7.3%, but there are some people that are changing their plans, maybe going from a single person plan to a family plan, right? That gets more expensive when they make those adjustments. Salary contingency. So this is kind of what we were talking about, to either get folks closer to what is actually competitive in the real world out there, or those that were already competitive to keep them, at a steady state with the world that's out there. That would have been a 4% increase. We're talking $78,000. Title II, the loss is actually bigger than this. But in talking with our curriculum director and the work that's kind of ongoing, we're looking for $129,000 to mitigate the loss of the Title II funding. In terms of, there's been discussion, especially over Green Mountain, about, harassment, bullying. We're actually looking in the data right now. What is coming out of the school level data, I think, is going to be unexpected when we talk about it at the Green Mountain meeting next month. But because people are identifying it as a potential concern, it makes sense to put some money aside to be able to do some programming around that within and across the district as a whole. Nothing wrong with trying to improve climate. So $35,000 for that.
What does that mean now? Do we not already have programs in place or available or?
We do, but not, I would say, a holistic effort. Right. They have done training, they have done work, they respond to things when they happen as they are supposed to. But if folks are feeling that, the climate isn't where it should be, again, we'll be able to confirm that from the next board meeting. then it makes sense to, well, if people are identifying it as a concern, let's address it. Never hurts to do this sort of work with kids. So this would be about bringing in some speakers, national level speakers to come in, kind of talk with the kids, get things kicked off. It would be for programming materials for the teachers so that there is a curriculum that's built into the advisories that work on addressing this and make sure that that work is continuous and ongoing. And then any kind of follow-up coaching that would be required as a part of the implementation of those programs. And this would be primarily a one-time piece just to get everything kicked off. There would be a smaller kind of ongoing cost to this to keep it going across the district.
Will this replace all of the, because we funded a bunch of stuff for like the restorative programs, like restorative justice and like.
And it would be an enhancement too.
So it's not gonna replace it, it's gonna.
Yeah. And so the way that I think about it is, the first year is kind of like a surge of a large flurry of work of getting it up, getting everybody involved, getting everybody connected to it. So the cost up front is large. You want to keep that momentum going, but the cost goes down significantly. It would probably be about $5,000 to $6,000 a year to keep it going. And this is district wide. This is Ludlow, Mount Holly, and Green Mountain. Yeah. So good question.
So right now we're spending, the central office is just under 2 million this year. So it's a 15% increase more or less, right?
Say that again, Dave?
So the current budget for the central office is,
Bottom line there on the table. So
It's about a 50%.
there, it seems like we hear complaints from our from our people who don't like to pay taxes about a 15% increase in central office.
So, and again, they're just, like I said, the reasons these are there, it's just a draft budget, board can change it when things are probably a little bit more solid for the December rounds. But again, remember that some of these are what is within our control and what is not. Healthcare plan costs, nothing we can do anything about. Title II, that's a discretionary, you don't have to fund it, but then all your professional development across the district comes screeching to a halt. That is there because the state, not the state, the federal government has took that grant money away. The climate and culture programming, again, that's a value in terms of the board is this a value? Is this not given our current circumstances? That would be a board decision. The salary contingency, like I said, there were a couple of employees that were probably 20,000 below what the going rate is within the district. So while the teachers and the support staff have a union to make sure that things are staying kind of comparable through the negotiation process, these people really don't. So I don't know what's happened in the past, but at least with me, and it's part of it comes from the policy governance and its requirements, is that I go out and I look at the state comparables whenever the other contracts, when the teachers' contracts and stuff are up, and just see where our folks are sitting. And that's kind of the assessment. So again, we don't have people that are necessarily leaving the district, but we certainly do have people that could make a heck of a lot more if they switch to the next town over. Is basically what that's about.
So on the Title II money, how do we actually spend it? I understand it's for professional development. So we hire outside people to come in, or how?
So a lot of it is we've got outside folks that are coming in. A lot of it is there are program materials that go along with the curriculum work. We've got the software packages like OGAP, the OGAP's the program like IXL that these monies support. And so you've got your curriculum, you've got teaching people how to use the curriculum and the programs properly to best connect with kids. You've got how we assess to see that things are working the way that they should so that we can adjust. So it's kind of that pool of money that's there. I can come in, bring in a list of exactly what it's hitting if folks would like. I could actually probably pull it right from the grant system right now.
I know when we were talking about the BOCES, that was one area where it was suggested that by instead of bringing in somebody from Boston, you know,
Yeah,
a private firm.
but they're specifically special education kind of training. So the BOCES would be.
Well, but I think they curriculum development,
They could.
you know, and professional development, it would seem like that there might be some opportunities for, by coordinating and, you know, if they can come in for less expensive than what we're paying for the people to do it now.
So you have, oh, we have all that, that's important stuff. You know, you have the ability on staff to do a lot of the training in-house. I used to do 99% of it, all the curriculum and all the other things that we've talked about at OSSD. I can do that, but you're going to need to free me up from all the other stuff that's keeping me busy 16 hours a day. And that's the same thing that's kind of true. You know, Louisa's probably capable of doing a bit of this as well, but the other things that are on our plates would have to come off. So, you know, if that becomes a board prerogative, it's fun work, but it can't be done while I'm doing investigations and, you know, that sort of thing.
There's also a lot to be said about having people from other places and other ideas and other philosophies and keeping things fresh and always doing things in-house might be less financially sometimes, but more costly, and we get stuck in ruts that we can't then get out of.
Yeah. But it's a good conversation that we're having, and it's worth it because it shows that folks are thinking about, you know, the impact of the potential budget. And, you know, hopefully brainstorming some ways around some of this. But again, this is the draft budget. This is the, you know, kind of what we're seeing in the here and now. Transportation, a $16,000 increase, and that's the net changes in personal benefits. You know, some people are coming on to family plans, some people may be reducing. There's the negotiations contingencies, which is kind of what we're estimating is going to come out of the negotiations with the Green Mountain support staff because they cover the bus drivers. All the bus drivers in both districts are under the Green Mountain contract. There were also some decreases that played into this. Apparently, who was the bus driver? Was that not Holly? For Ludlow, the bus is paid off, so there's $17,000 in payments that we don't have to plan for. And then we had tried to put in a substitute bus driver last year. You know, the board was great. The community was great. We got the money there. We can't find the body. And so that money is coming back. So when you take those additions and the decreases, the overall net change in terms of transportation is that $16,177.
Which is like a 3% increase, 3.28.
What do you mean that all of the buses for the SU are covered by Green Mountain?
So
That the drivers work under is a Green Mountain TRSU agreement.
Is there any money taken from the Mount Holly district at all?
Yes.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's what I needed to
Yeah.
I was just thinking that we were covering that entirely. Okay.
yeah.
They're just under the same agreement. We'll bill them back.
Yeah, it's working. Transportation's done at the TRU level. We bill out to the two districts for the services, but the contract that they work under is the Green Mountain.
Okay, that's,
Regarding
thank you, that makes complete sense.
Just a minor thing on the TRSU summary right now, so a couple of slides back. All of the others in the chart are the total in 25-26, whereas transportation, the number appears to be the increase for 26-27.
No, that's what they all are.
So as you go down so usually it's a good question. Let me see if I can explain. So usually when I do the budgets for the boards, the little presentations, it focuses on the changes from the previous year. So central office last year, you know, the line that we talked about, this 300,000 this year, last year the increase was 139. So it's not the overall cost of it, it's just how much it went up last year. Same thing, transportation last year went up 53,000. A lot of that was due because we were trying to get that other bus driver. This year it's going up 16. So sorry about that. This is the overall total, the total changes. So, right, they add up the columns.
All changes.
Yeah, it's not the total TRSU budget, but that's the total changes.
You know, I mean, it'd be informative to have a column that had what the budget was, say the current year budget.
That's on the left.
for individual.
But the total, but not the,
Individual cost.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
not the central office, transportation, special ed.
So the total amount in those three lines.
Right, just so we can see
Gotcha.
roughly what a percentage increase each of the three are doing.
Gotcha. I can do that for next time. That's easy enough.
Yeah.
While the numbers aren't fun, that kind of work is fun stuff. Gotcha. The big one.
The big one.
I don't know, you want to talk about this one? You want them to hate you or hate me? So special education, so purchased services, so that's when we have outside people come in and provide services to the students for us that we don't have the capability to do on our own. You're looking at a $587,000 projected increase. The tuition cost increases, this is for the students that we are actually sending out to outplacements. The increase is more about the cost of those placements going up than it is about us having more students that we're sending out to outplacements. So the cost of receiving the services is going through the roof. Transportation of the students back and forth to outplacement is a $22,000 increase. Contingency, so this is kind of estimating what the increase to the budget is going to be because of the contract negotiations. Try to estimate, what it's going to be once they're resolved.
It's also 2 years, because it's a year next year.
Yeah, because they're going to get retroactive and
Salary is spelled wrong.
And the salary and benefits piece, those are the step increases. I'm losing that because that double S is bothering me.
Yeah.
And the cost of the increase of benefits. And then there's a clawback on IEP services costs from the tuition schools. So when we send a student that's on an IEP and tuition them out to another school, we pay for their IEP service costs. And so we're projecting that those costs are going to go up by about $70,000.
The transportation, you dropped the number, so it's 229,836.
Scrambling around this afternoon because a lot of this information is.
229,836.
I'll have to fix it afterwards. Maybe
Yeah, and that's not cheap. The transportation,
it's just 222, as you're saying?
229,836.
Can you just clarify for me the clawback on when we send a kid to a program like Kindle Farm or something?
No, that's not bad.
That's what I was asking.
So
Okay,
it's
so
when-
this is,
A lot of that Holly student, for example, is out
Goes to
River and they're
River.
on IEP.
Right.
Those
Yeah.
IEP
Okay.
services are filled out.
right, and that's the, what was it, 70,000
Yeah, and so
That's
the
an increase.
increase,
so the
right?
cost of the services are going up.
Yeah.
Or what-
And-
I
that-
budgeted 100,000 and even last year,
And that for Ludlow, I mean, I know we're sitting here talking about TRSU, so my question is, if a Ludlow Mount Holly student who happens to have an IEP and happens to choose Green Mountain for their high school,
but you can fill that.
it does not bill back.
And I don't do that because the expense is based on, I'm gonna bill Ludlow for Green Mountain, and it's really gonna come out of the same pot of money. And in the end, the special ed budget is divided by child count, which is based in the town that you live in.
Right,
So a portion of that expense will,
okay,
we'll go back to Green Mountain.
right, that makes sense, because it's really, because it's one, that was my question, because special ed is made out of the TRSU, right, like, I just wanted to make that clear in my head-ish.
Yeah.
Ish, yeah, because,
So is this based on the assumption that we have roughly the same number of special ed students next
So
year?
I go through all of the students that are out of district. yes, for the child care portion of it, but I go through all the students that are out of district, then I start looking at where their placement is, how they're transported, how their additional costs for the services that they get. Because I have to do what's called a service plan, which is essentially predicting those students that exceed the $67,386 or whatever that amount is. So the state knows how to budget. So I use that as my jumping point for the budget. And I'll probably add a few students that I think might, so they're in there, but not confident enough to like put it in the budget. So we'll have to decide where we end up. I hate to over budget, but we could easily do that with this, but you know.
And that's why if we were gonna think about any kind of reserve funding, getting a reserve built up, this would be the place to do it, because it's just.
But it would have to be a significant amount of difference. With stuff.
And so we talked about what could the Medicaid dollars, be used as that reserve fund. Partially, but
I don't think so.
but it doesn't cover enough different.
We have to justify how we spend it.
And it has to be for the greater good of school, right? Isn't that sort of the?
That's pretty limited.
Yeah.
This might be, as we come into December, that might be a reflective piece for the board is, as we go into this budget season, do we want to try to start building up a little bit of reserve for special education?
Can I ask a politically incorrect question? What happens, and I think the answer is we don't know, to reserves we have when Act 73, whatever we're on now, goes through?
So the
I'd be scared of that.
the early renditions of Act 73 had the choice of what happened to them resting in the hands of the Secretary of Education.
With who? Say
The
that.
Secretary of Education. So I don't know if that made it into the final bill, because usually the parts of that that I'm looking at aren't around that, but the earlier versions.
So the state would have control over our money that we pre-saved for ourselves.
Well, remember, outside of all the mechanics of the things that we're talking about here, the mechanical pieces, there was also the power grab. There was a massive consolidation of power in this the state. So, yeah.
But mostly not for 26, 27.
Well,
I mean, the bigger power grabs
28.
are
Yeah.
in the years following.
I mean, I think once we have this legislative session, hopefully we have a better direction and a better idea, and then we can make those choices of what we're gonna do with reserve money. I mean, I'd sooner put it back in our school and to give it to somebody else to use. That's what to do, but.
remember, the logic of it, though, is that if we are asking for reserve money, it's not all coming from us. It's coming from the taxpayers across the state. So technically, if somebody clawed it back from us, from the districts at some point in time, the assumption is it would go into the education reserve fund and then in some way, shape, or form serve us all. I'm being naive.
You're being trusting.
Yes.
I'm not.
Just to put it in perspective, the special ed budget is up 20. When you net the three of them together, because that's how we end up voting on them, it's an increase of 20%.
20.1.
I forgot where I was. I forgot why I was putting the numbers together, but the numbers at least are still in my head. In terms of the overall percentage of students that are on IEPs, the state average is currently around 21%. So in any district that you go with, on average, 20% of the kids are on an IEP. There are some districts in the state of Vermont where it is 41%. And so we have historically, I know that the boards have talked about, we got a high number. Well, for the statistics or demographics of 10 or 20 years ago, yeah, you did. You don't anymore. And so this is what we're talking about here is happening in all budget discussions right now across the state.
Yeah, we keep throwing money at it. Just kidding. Seems like insanity.
Kind of the last piece, and we had talked a little bit about this. This is the unknown. So we've got that Individuals with Disability and Education Act grant money. that is out there. For us, the potential impact is around $415,000 if we were to lose that grant. This is the one that, like I said, the federal government is going after, but not directly. They're not cutting the funding, they're just cutting the people that administer the funding so that the funding can't get out. And so we don't know if we're going to see an impact of this or not, but this is a potential surprise down the road that we just want to keep our eyes on. If something materializes and things become a little bit more clear about our ability to access these funds before the budget season is over, we'll be talking with the board about trying to build some contingency funds into the budget for it. But again, this is another reason to potentially have a reserve for special education. And that is it for this early in the budget cycle.
So, ask for thoughts on a break to guidance, direction, input, anyway. I will be working on Ludlow Mount Holly tomorrow and Green Mountain next week, so when we're at your meeting, you'll see the impact of where we are currently. And then we can talk more about it. So I don't expect to, unless we have direction from you, I don't see any current.
And of course, we all hope that the teacher bargaining will be over before we have to vote on a budget.
Well, that would, help, because I have an estimated
Clarify.
contingency, not knowing where we're gonna, so that would give us.
And it was bad enough last year having 1 year worth of contingency. And, this year, we if we're spending more than what we put in the budget this year, it's sort of, it's a hit on next year in, one way or another.
Yeah, then when we start looking at the Ludlow Mount Holly and the Green Mountain budgets, right, we have that money that was pulled from reserves. Was it Kelly's coupon that we're gonna have to manage and deal with?
Did you say you had to do the hiring in the new business before or after the EL stuff?
We didn't, but after.
Sorry, when you said the word add, I was thinking math and budget, sorry.
No, I just, so I know what the order
Yes.
is thinking.
During new,
So just anywhere.
yeah. Well, yeah, we didn't really say, we just said new business, right?
All right. Nothing else? For Joyce? Right, so old business, that brings us to executive limitations and read, EL 2.4 and EL 2.5. Any input, changes, questions?
For the EL 2.4, I was just confused as like how it's formatted. With the policy wording being the same as it is above.
In some
Yes.
cases, I gotta look at the specific, I'm pulling it up right now. In some cases, you'll hear me say something like this is self-evident. That means that the policy wording is so explicitly clear, there's no interpretation needed.
It like says the whole thing of that for it. It says,
It's,
like the superintendent shall not cause, it's just like kind of
Yeah.
repeated.
I take a peek.
And I think that happened again in one of the new policies too, it's just the formatting.
Which you said it was 2.4?
This one's a 2.4, yes.
2.4. Which provision was it?
It's just the beginning, the first page of that, how it says like right under the superintendent and the date. It says the superintendent shall not cause. And then underneath that, it says policy wording.
Oh, so that is the correct formatting. So the first one is just, and I could probably put a heading on there, it's a summary of the overall policy as the board has written it. And then when you get to the policy wording, what I'm doing is I'm breaking down each piece of it so that you know which piece I'm interpreting. So this part of the policy, the superintendent shall not cause or allow financial planning, that goes along with the interpretation
Gotcha.
under it. And so you'll see that if you click down to like provision 1, right? I'm repeating provision 1, and because that's what I'm attempting to interpret in that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
So no, actually, it is confusing that it shows up a bunch of times. I can see that. But that is the normal form. It's a good question.
Any other questions on the EL 2.4 or 2.5?
Well, only the sort of the general question. Again, so I wasn't here when you started the whole process. So I understand that these are the limitations. And then we, one by one, we're going through things that the superintendent shouldn't do, right? But I mean, in general, it seems to me that if at some point we're not happy with the superintendent, it's probably not going to be because he did something he shouldn't have done. It's more likely to be that he didn't do something that we wanted him to do, or he wasn't successful, right?
So the evaluation piece, so there's kind of two pieces to that question. So when you're looking at these, your job is to look at the interpretation that I put there. And so I'll build right into the part that you're talking about. If the interpretation is reasonable based upon how you worded your policy, then I've done my job. If you're not happy with the interpretation based on how you worded the policy, your job is to change the policy, so I have to change my interpretation, right? It puts a lot of thought into what the board's intentionality is, and it gets us kind of really deep. In terms of evaluation, that is about the ends. So if I were to violate one of these like egregiously, that's a terminable offense, right? If I purposely did it and did it with intent, then that's just then that's a disciplinary problem, just go away. The ends is where the actual evaluation occurs. So the ends is, okay, we've told you in the ends policies that we want achievement in math, say, to improve. And so my job is to interpret, well, what does it mean for that improvement to occur in terms of our context? If you agree with that interpretation, then I've also put in metrics there as part of that interpretation. Oh, it means that, each year that goes by, we are either at this threshold in terms of our testing or we are approaching it. If I failed in that, then I'm out of compliance and I have a responsibility to report to the board how I'm going to fix it and in what timeline it's going to fix.
And so have we already done the ends or is that something we haven't gotten to yet?
So the ends will be coming after this. I have your end statement. The principals started working on the ends interpretations. I halted them a little bit because it was unclear whether or not Green Mountain was going to follow through on policy governance. And I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it. But yes, those will be coming as part of this process that we're going through. Right, we're doing the executive limitations and then it will be the ends interpretations. Yeah. And it's the same process. If I've done an interpretation of an end and it's reasonable, but it's not what the board intended, then you go back and you change the ends policy.
Is there a reason, like reading through on sometimes ends is capitalized ENDS versus others? Only a couple.
Usually it should be capitalized the whole time. I'll do a search going
Yeah, I was just
through.
curious. There was
And technically it should just be the capital E and then the lowercase ENDS. So that was just me probably thinking about something else while I was thinking.
It's not an acronym. No, okay.
Ends, it's your goal.
It is.
This is the end we're driving towards.
Got it.
So, yeah.
Any other questions? All right, is there a motion to accept the executive limitations 2.4 and 2.5?
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll send it back.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? So EL 2.4 and 2.5 are accepted. Then that brings us to the mandated policy updates from the VSBA second read. That was section C and D. Discussion. Okay, not, is there a motion?
I think one of mine was just the formatting.
Oh.
Just as I kind of scanned through all of them, there's some, like the space differences on a couple of them.
Yeah, I can have Sydney go in. He's gonna clean it up after.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, because we do want it to look good
No, and
because nobody
have
else
it
lives there.
here, but I think it's all like of the blank district. Is it just gonna be those district specific or TRSU?
The mandated policies?
Yeah.
They apply to all 3 districts.
Okay,
Yeah.
cause like for the C4, the English learners one, it's just like it is a policy of the Blake school district.
It was probably missed and should have had our district in there.
Yeah, I think that's the same for C5 as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll talk to Sydney and do a quick look. To C4, C5.
Confused, because it's gotta be, it's not gonna be districts, it's gonna be supervisory, not districts.
I mean, we can say it's gotta,
This one, this is
it's
how
gotta
it's being done.
encompass all, so that's a good point, is I'll figure out the best way to word it, so.
Yeah, in in policy C29, it's the Two Rivers Supervisory Union and in parentheses, district is committed to. Probably should be how it should be over a little bit.
Yeah, you know what, I'll do the read on it. In terms of the formatting and whatnot, just to make sure they're right.
I mean, so I mean, we're approving it for TRSU and then each board will approve it for the district, right? So
For
that,
their district.
so this one should say TRSU
Yeah.
and then,
Well, it's one policy that we share throughout, everybody approves the same policy, so we don't have different editions of it.
But there's a good point that it should be made clear that if all the boards have voted on it, and we've only got one write-up, that it should be clear that
Well, I
Is
think the
all
bottom
three.
of talks about when they approved it, but I
Yeah.
think we've done TRSU and its member districts and a lot of the wording.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
that's similar to how it's being reflected in that first one,
Yeah.
that one.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's been a month since I looked at these in detail, so that I can go in specifically if there's specific.
Block ready with me today, so I've actually
It's awesome.
go through them all.
Is there, do you want, is this just formatting, it's not content?
Yes, it's not content, sorry.
Yeah, if there's substantive changes that we want to know.
Yeah, everything else is good.
And even though these are mandated, if there are things in them that the board feels they don't agree with, what we do in those cases is we take, what the concern is to legal counsel and say, hey, is there a way to change this wording a little bit that still meets what the state's requiring while, getting us what we need, so that's possible too.
Do you want to, if there's not gonna be a contextual change, I think we can accept it, but if we're gonna be making changes, I think it needs to come back for another read.
I think it would be nice to know that
We're corrected.
we're corrected, yeah.
So let's bring us back
forth.
forth.
We'll do it.
And also, just so that we can keep the wording consistent, however, I like what Cheryl said.
Yeah.
And its member districts, that way it'll keep it clean.
You're tabling both E and C.
Yeah,
See,
That-
that Steve.
no, that was C that you brought forward, right?
Yeah,
It doesn't hurt to do, let's do the whole shebang.
he has all of them too. If we want to do a supervisor
Member
meeting
district.
and a member district, that would be all the time.
Turn back.
Yeah.
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 I mean, I think whatever we do in one, I just think they should be consistent, that's all.
Mhm.
But that also,
Does that bring them all back?
right, right, going forward, they should all be consistent, and then when we loop back around, we'll, because that's kind of how we do it, we just keep
Like, like,
starting fresh when we
Yeah.
come to the end.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, we're gonna bring students back with the change for a third read, and we're gonna bring the instruction back, so C and D.
Yep.
To reflect the supervisory union member districts, and then
Yeah.
just amendments in the formatting fixes.
Gotcha.
All right, and then recommended policy, second read, C29.
that's what it had, the Two Rivers Supervisory Union District instead of.
Yeah.
That's
Just
and,
one,
yeah.
Okay, so third read minus so that it reflects supervisory. Member districts. Is there any other?
But then at the bottom, it says shall report a monthly, quarterly, annually,
Which one do we want to pick?
right, status report. I would think annual would be sufficient. We,
It's that.
Is this really to that?
I mean, annual, unless there are specific, issues that need, that need to be addressed.
Yeah, and those, your executive limitations policies kind of cover that. If there's anything going on that shouldn't be, you should be apprised of it. But, so you're saying annually? Yeah, I'll go through and I'll do a quick read of them. Like I said, we had folks pull them together, so. And make sure that all those parts and pieces we just talked about in there. All right, I got my note.
all right. There's nothing more, so those two will come back. Great. All right, that new business, do you guys want to just continue with, since we're the first reads? 2.3 and 2.6, I don't know if anyone looked at them ahead of time. Any thoughts or initial changes, questions?
Rationale for provision 1,
Uh, 2, 3?
of 2, 3, yeah.
Yep.
Just, what is the OSSD practice stand for?
Oh, I was thinking OSSD one. Should be TRSU. I actually spent a lot of time on this, so I'm almost done. I made those mistakes. I did that for a couple of times during my first 6 months as I'd answer the phone on OSSD.
And then for under provision number 3, under evidence,
Are we still in 2.3?
yes.
Yeah, 3.
Just missing the A for board minutes.
Vision. This was like 16 in this one. So which piece?
The evidence under provision number 3.
Yeah.
Was just missing the A for
Oh,
board minutes.
Oh,
None to be.
No, you should be.
yep, okay. Somebody just fixed it, yeah.
In some of them too, it's just like the districts, it's just referred to as like the district.
Yeah, I'll put the S on.
And in provision 11, it just specifically says the students of TRSU. So if we just want to put the students of the district,
But it's not.
or
No, it's
the
in member.
supervisor.
Right, yeah, I don't
that's why I was confused of which
Right.
where when that
Yeah.
is over. Perfect.
Yeah, because Ludlow hasn't adopted.
Well, then member districts wouldn't fit there either.
No, member districts was member districts was under the mandated policy for TRSU, the ERO.
Are these pretty much the same as what Green Mountains do? I think they're probably the same.
Yeah, they're quite close because they have the same,
Guess it's telling me.
they have the same policies that they put together. There are some that are distinctly different because
So don't worry.
of the role of the two boards. So there's not a lot, but right, TRSU has a different function. Relative to some of these policies than this. That's a school district. This is more administrative, operational. So there's a difference between some of them. But for the most part, it is easy once they're wrapped up the first time. Yeah, this one, this is 2.3. I think this is the one, I gotta go back and look at the other one. One of them had like 16 provisions of it, and you could have stopped at provision 11 because the ones that followed were basically covered under everything that had gone on before, but that's okay. When I was doing the work.
These were all recommended, was it her name Jeannie, right? When we went through all of those, so, oh,
You had,
Jump down.
you had some that were dramatically different than what the norm was. Because because I had a lot of fun kind of comparing,
do not in this, no,
said keep it on.
yeah, do not in this session.
Every time. Every time.
What was the old calculator that had the backward logic that you look backwards? It's like,
Oh, you're way over.
anybody who was a math person in the 80s.
What was it then?
Nope, wasn't born.
Thank you. Sorry. All right.
So why don't we, if people want to take some time to look at these, you can individually send things you find to Lane in the interim. And then they can come back for a second read.
If folks are okay, what I'll do, because these are really super substantive changes, I'll get them fixed up and I'll ship them back out with formatting changes and whatnot for probably Monday-ish. And that way, then if people have a second set of eyes on, because some of them are long, and there's stuff, then after that, hopefully that'll speed things up for everybody. You shoot me what you see.
All right, so then that, I guess, will bring us, unless there's more, does anyone have anything else to have right now? So then that would bring us to the hiring of a special ed teacher from Mount Holly. Mary, you gonna present?
She's still on.
Yeah, she's on.
I'm still here.
Yeah, Mary, you want to talk about?
Okay, it would be Joshua White. He's moving from Flint, Texas. And he's already acquired an apartment in Rutland, so he's getting ready to be here, and he's already trying to take a course on Orton Gillingham. He's replacing Madeline Costello at Mount Holly Elementary School. He has a Master of Education and Administration from Lamar University in Beaumont, Texas, and a Bachelor of Science in Speech Communication from the University of Texas in Tyler, Texas. And his experience is has been an assistant principal, a special educator, teacher of reading for grades 5 and 6, teacher in an adaptive elementary classroom, and teacher of social studies for grades 8 to 12. And he's been very ambitious and getting ready to move here. He has obtained a Vermont Agency of Education letter of eligibility for licensure for special education for grades K through age 21. And he has other areas that he's good in and would get a license in is multilingual learning, pre-K to grade 12, middle grades science, grades 5 to 9, middle grades English language, grades 5 to 9, and social studies, grades 7 to 12. So he comes really highly qualified. I checked his references and they were very good. So we'd like to see if you would move to hire Josh.
Why is he moving up here?
I didn't hear you.
Well, why is he moving up here?
Why is he moving up here? He just wanted a change in where he is. He only has a dog and he's moving up with his dog.
And why is Madeline Costello, leaving?
She started with a provisional license and it was overwhelming and a little bit too much for her, so she resigned.
Okay.
She was trying to do a new position at the same time as do all the requirements in the state, turn the provisional into a professional.
And so it looked like Joshua White's experience is more toward the older end of the elementary. Is that what he would be doing in Mount Holly, or the fourth and sixth graders, or?
Well, he has some licensure to teach, let's see, ages kindergarten through 21, age 21 for special education.
Right, I mean, I just have the question, what's the job description, what the expectation of what he will be doing?
He probably will be working with the older children there. I have to talk with Craig and Melissa Pienta, who's the other special educator, and we need to review what grades he's going to be working in.
Just because it looks like even though he's certified for everything, the bulk of his experience is with the older kids.
Yeah.
And so it'll be an easier fit. But that's not what the board should. We leave that to you to figure out.
Okay.
And you said he's already secured housing, so I'm assuming his intent's more public. Were you able to contact his current employer, or is that still?
He did get an apartment in Rutland.
Oh, sure.
Oh, so no, so I was saying, if he's gone as far as getting an apartment in Rutland, I'm assuming his intentions are public, like he's moved up here. So were you able to contact his most recent employer, because it says do not contact them?
Yes, I did call him. Yeah. I
Okay.
checked with people. He wanted to make sure that they knew what he was doing before, he had applied and everything, so.
Yeah, that is common with a current employer.
No, that's fine. It doesn't, if someone's gone as far as like obtaining housing, you
No,
know.
there wasn't any.
Did you say that?
So, okay, all right.
Finally,
I guess you're ready for him to start, right?
Yeah, we're ready for him. We've been without somebody for a while, and they've been trying to make sure they took care of everything among their own staff, and they've done very well with that. But they really need some extra help so we can make sure we stay in compliance with the state and federal laws and provide the students with the services that they need.
So I would move we hire him for this position.
So it's moved to hire Joshua White, the special ed teacher at Mount Holly. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I just have one question. I think you just answered it, Mary, but for the record, we have looked and determined to make sure that when we're rehiring, that we need the position.
Yes, I have.
Thank you.
And he will, if approved, he would start December 1st.
There's no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Joshua White is accepted for. Great. Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, Mary.
Okay.
All right, moving along, that brings us to ownership linkage, so a rural school community alliance update.
Well, you probably all been following the news, and such as it is, the commission meets periodically. But, the initial CTE plan basically had us combined with Springfield and Bellows Falls, whereas the modified one has us combined with Brattleboro. And everything in between.
I will just add to that, Dave. I, as the chair of Love Mount Holly, filled out their survey, and I don't see my answers on their report out. Every person's name, I saw Lane's name was mentioned, and then their answers were sort of next to it. Mine don't show up. I think I did share with you my responses, my copy of the thing. And I have tried to go to 2 of their virtual meetings. One I could not even log into, and the second one, several of us were online and could not hear anything. It sounded like there was a phone, like an old landline phone open on the side across the room, and they couldn't fix the technology, so none of us could hear. No,
Well, remember,
But
they,
even still, they should fix it.
yeah, this is a rushed process. What did they mean? They probably remembers that it was about 8 times. Was that the number of meetings that they had to get this done in? This whole massive redistricting, 3 different maps and plans, and you got 8 meetings to do it, and they're moving so fast, I can't imagine they could even take account of what people are saying, even if they wanted to, with how fast they got the process.
There was also some question, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, Dave, about the 3 maps that were actually presented and available for public to view. And then they were taken down after, I believe, the Essex Junction meeting.
Well, as we said, the CTE started with the map, the one map, and then had us in the modified version. I think Weston and Londonderry didn't like being combined with us and Springfield.
Right.
They wanted to be with Manchester, right? And so when they moved them to Manchester, they said, well, now that it's too small, so we'll take it all the way down to Brattleboro instead. But that was the CTE map. Then there was the regional high school map, which they all seem to agree is sort of high in the sky for a decade or 2 away. To me, you don't draw district lines because you hope that in 10 or 20 years, you'll build a regional high school for that group.
Yeah, they're not saying you're going to build them. They're saying, well, we're hoping that we can incentivize them to come together and do it.
No, so that map put Mount Holly in with Rutland, right? And the rest of the supervisory union, I don't remember how far south it went, but I think it went much further south than Springfield, right? But I think the members all seem to think that this, even though they presented a map, that it wasn't really a serious proposal. And that's something to think about for later. And then when they presented the BOCES map, they sort of said, okay, well, it's okay to have these for BOCES, but it doesn't answer the question of what do we do with districts and supervisory unions? Do we leave everything just the way it is and have BOCES, or do we combine districts, or do we combine supervisory unions, and that they haven't had that discussion?
Yeah,
And so to me, it's hard to imagine how they're going to come up with something, in 2 meetings from now.
yeah. The line I remember from the BOCES discussion was intentional force consolidation of the BOCES. But it was interesting.
Well, the state's not going to tell us what they're going to tell us what to do, but leave the details, right, for the communities to fight about, to pit against each other, which is really what's going to end up happening.
Well, they're supposed to vote, and then the next step is to immediately start working on the transition boards who are.
But
Still not.
like closing of schools, they're going to say, "Oh, figure it out
Oh,
yourself."
I think they'll probably be more involved. That's kind of like the last step in the process. So you get the transition boards in, you move over into getting the new central office teams together. And then at that point in time, they are charged with doing an evaluation of the schools within their district in terms of, quality and facility quality and whatnot, and making those determinations at those times. So if this goes the way it's headed and doesn't slow down, you're probably talking 5 years-ish before people are talking school closings. If it goes the way it's going.
Well, then the other commission, the old commission, I don't remember the name, but is the one that's supposed to come up with recommendations for what's the process for closing a school.
What's the governance?
And and the big fight is whether the local town gets to vote on it, and whether that's advisory or whether that's determinative,
Yeah.
right? And in the case of what happens where you have districts that were formed and you had agreements that required votes before closing them, and will those go away or will they still be there? And then it's all, we don't know what they're going to decide and what they're going to recommend, and then it's up to the legislature in the end to decide what to do. But to me, the fact that the Board of Ed, or the Agency of Education wants to grab all this power, but they don't have the capacity to run a Zoom session. If we're going to trust them to decide how much money each district should get, and decide how, what, who should be deciding what, and they can't even organize a meeting.
There was some wording that the state is supposed to be reaching out, right? Because there are structures that the AOE needs to have that it physically doesn't have to support what's happening. And so they're supposed to be doing an analysis of what those structures need to be so that it can go on the budget cycle so that they can build it into the AOE. And I haven't seen any discussions about that. But I'll answer part of your question because it came up in the legal discussions kind of early on, especially with what the state could do and what it couldn't do about school closures. Laws are not set. Legislators vote to change laws. School boards are the legislators for their districts. If you have articles of agreement that are currently in existence, the people that have the power to change it are the school boards. The school boards can vote to change the articles of agreements and what is required to close a school. And so how they're going to address that or whether they're going to try to fiddle with that, I don't know. But it opens up a whole lot of Pandora's boxes and doors that power is there.
Right, I think one of the earlier drafts of 454 explicitly repealed all of those provisions that they negotiated.
Yeah. And then the question is what do they do with the unions and how are they going to merge all the different contracts? And boy, 2 years, have fun with it. I mean, I have trouble apparently keeping the formatting and catching all my spelling mistakes and 16-page documents with the work we do here. And so more power to them. But
Yeah, no, but again, as you said, the AOE doesn't have the capacity to do this work, and a more rational process, we first get them the capacity and then design the system after they have the capacity to do some
They have
analysis.
no idea they don't have the capacity.
That's the
Right.
problem.
and they don't know what structures they need. But yeah, I agree with 100%. That is the way that you make change is you build the foundational structures first, that everything else is scaffold.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd add, is it's okay, is that I went to the Mount Holly Select Board, and the only issue they really cared about was school choice. Some of them cared about local control and some of them didn't. But because, from Mount Holly, 60% of the kids or so the kids go to Mill River. And so they want to make, and a third probably go to private schools, right? Independent schools. I think that there's one at Green Mountain was the count. No, whereas Ludlow is the other way around. Most of the Ludlow kids go to Green Mountain, but a lot of them, again, go to Burton, Long Trail School. And so again, our fine select board, I mean, all they really cared about was keeping the ability to choose.
I think most places are like that.
But they didn't want to write a letter, or they didn't. They encouraged individuals to write letters.
There's so much to say. Anyways, we're gonna move on. Okay, that brings us to our second and last public comment. If there's any public on.
Jeff Hansen's out there, but he's our board alternate, so.
Right, is there any board comments today? That brings us to future meeting, which is the 4th of December, 6 p.m. in Cavendish. And we have our self-evaluation, and then we're doing the executive session. Yes, we're still doing the executive session.
I would say you really do want to.
Okay. I just wasn't sure what was discussed for. Sorry.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Okay, so for board evaluation, we have board members are given and have read agenda, background materials prior to the meeting,
Yes,
especially you.
You were more thorough than I.
Board members are respectful of each other and the public and the administration.
yes,
Board members handle conflict openly and constructively. Board members focus on the role and responsibility of the board.
yes,
Board members act as a team once a decision is made and work collaboratively through the decision making.
yes.
Okay. Would someone like to read us into executive session?
Sure.
Yep.
I move that the board enter into an executive session with the superintendent under Title 16, Section 313A4, to have a follow-up discussion on last month's dismissal against action against a public employee.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Alright.
Is there any discussion? No, all in favor? So Amber's in?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're out of executive session at 8:27.
I move that the board direct the superintendent to proceed with the implementation of the agreement as discussed in executive session pertaining to the dismissal of a staff member. The superintendent is authorized to take all necessary steps to finalize the agreement in accordance to its terms.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. With that, I will look for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Riley, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
We're at 8:27.
Yeah.
Thank you.